Shalom, beloved. As we continue into the second quarter of our yearly study, I thought it wise, given current events, that we include the scriptural background for much of what is happening in today's world. Nearly all of it is prophetic, and what that means is that there are consistent scriptural themes in play in these days which help us to understand the current events from the Most High's perspective. So from Genesis to Revelation, there's a theme or a thread, if you will, that can be seen. That theme is found in Genesis chapter 3, and that's where the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent are seen. Those seeds are eternally at enmity with one another. The totality of Scripture reflects that thread in numerous ways, and so this chart is just a brief description of how that thread is reflected. So this column is the seed of the woman, this column is the seed of the serpent, and they are always in opposition to one another. Cain opposed Abel, Ishmael opposed Isaac, Esau opposed Jacob, Goliath opposed David, Jeroboam opposed Rehoboam, Israel opposed Judah, King Herod opposed King Jesus or Yahusha. The Roman Catholic Church or the Roman Church opposed the kingdom assemblies or the born again believers. The Edomites are called false Israel versus resurrected Israel, and we're going to be spending time on those things. Those who are not under covenant versus the covenant keepers. The seed of the serpent is called the tares. The seed of the woman is called the wheat. And finally, in Revelation chapter 12, the serpent of old versus the woman of Revelation chapter 12. Part of the reason for this lesson has to do with the times we're living in, the times of confusion, and how the Most High wants his people to be clear. So as we continue with the lesson premise, the premise of this lesson is that it is time for the serpent to be revealed. So here are some facts or some thoughts, if you will, if you don't consider them facts, about the serpent. The serpent has not, does not, never will create anything. The serpent continually perverts the truth and turns it into lies. And that's why it sometimes seems as if the serpent is creating a sinful condition, but actually it's a perversion of the truth. Another premise that we're going to be looking at, Edomites were theologians have taught. Edomites can be found in the last days because they're working for the serpent. Edomites always mix with other ethnic groups by intermarrying with them. We're going to be spending some time talking about that. Edomites have a perpetual hatred of the children of Yasharel. When we talk about the dragon, that serpent of old has 7 heads and 10 horns. Those 7 heads represent nations that are under heavy influence of the serpent as being manifested through Edom. This has an effect on what is happening today. Current Israelis are not necessarily bloodline children of Yasharel. They are most likely Edomites. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at these end times. And for those of you who haven't heard this word before, that's what eschatology is. It's the study of the times of the end. And we're going to be looking at the study of the times of the end through the eyes, continuing with this thread, through the eyes of Jacob and his twin brother Esau. Now, that relationship between Jacob and Esau can be found in Genesis chapter 25, verses 19 through 23, when their mother, being pregnant with both of them, they are twins, they were twins, and she was having trouble because she could tell that they were struggling in the womb for preeminence. And so she went to the Most High in prayer, asking him, why is this happening to me? And what the Most High told her is that there are two nations in your womb. But before we get to what he told her, when the children were being born, the first one that came out is who Esau is. And he's described as being red all over and hairy. He's the one that came out first. His brother Jacob came out with his hand on the heel of Esau. And his name actually means the grabber of the heel, or the supplanter. Esau, when they got old enough, or actually when they were grown, had come out from the field. He was a hunter, okay, and he came out from the field hungry. His brother Jacob had fixed a meal of lentils, and so he said, give me some of those lentils because I'm famished. Jacob said to him, I'll give you the lentils if you give me your birthright. See, that was what they were struggling over. When they were struggling in the womb, they were struggling as to who's going to come out first. Because in the culture of the day, the firstborn child always was the child who would carry on the name. He would have a double portion of the inheritance. So it was a big deal as to who's going to be the firstborn. So the babies knew that in the womb. They were fighting to be the firstborn. So when Jacob came out second, which meant that he wasn't the firstborn, he still wanted to be. So he said, well, I'll give you this food if you sell me your birthright. Esau said, what good is a birthright to me when I'm hungry? I'm about to die of starvation. So he sold Jacob his birthright, and Jacob took it, all right? And he took it having purchased it for a bowl of lentils. That's the story, okay? That's the continuation of this fight in the womb. So what the Most High had told Rachel is that there are going to be two nations in your womb, two peoples. When the word nation is used, it's talking about family groups, it's talking about ethnic groups. There are two nations in Rachel's womb, even though they are twins. And those two people will be separate. They're not going to get along. One will be stronger than the other. Esau ends up being stronger than Jacob, but the older will serve the younger. That's what's in the prophecy that the Most High gave to Rachel, their mother. So now we're going to look at a little bit. So now we're going to look a little bit more in depth at Esau and facts about Esau. Esau's genealogy, when you look in the scripture, is more extensive than that of Jacob. Why? Because Esau is a part of the seed of the serpent, and the seed of the serpent is found throughout the planet. Because the seed of the serpent represents sin. It represents rebellion. It represents constant warfare against the Most High and the Most High's people. So it has to be found throughout the world. And that's the case with Esau. And as it was with his brother, Esau gets destroyed several times, but Esau always comes back because he's a warrior. Esau likes to fight. So even if you beat Esau down, he's going to get back up and come right back at you. To continue with the story, Isaac and Rebekah were living in a land in which they were strangers, and therefore the people around them were also strangers. So they did not want their sons to take wives from the people that they that they found themselves living among. However, Esau, because he was still angry at his parents for what had happened with his brother Jacob, he did take wives of those people. So his wives came from Judith, who was the daughter of Beriel, the Hittite, Basmath, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite, and they brought grief to Isaac and to Rebekah. But toward the end of Isaac's life, when he was going to give the blessing and to the firstborn, he had intended to give it to Esau, and as the story goes, he was tricked. His wife, Jacob's mother, told Jacob to pretend that he was Esau so that he could get the blessing, and hopefully we remember that story. So when Esau came to receive the blessing, he was not able to get it, and Esau became furious, okay? So he asked Isaac, is there a blessing for me? And this is what Isaac said to his son Esau. He did give him another blessing besides the one that was to go to the firstborn. And he said, your dwelling place shall be away from the riches of the land. You shall live by the sword and serve your brother. When you rebel, you will tear his yoke from your neck. This blessing made Esau hold a grudge against his brother Jacob. And so then the next couple of slides are just, we talked already about the extent of Esau's family line. So we see in 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verses 35 through 54, several things. It talks about who he married. He said he married the daughters of Canaan, which he was told not to do, Adah and Elon, the Hittite. He married Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah, the Hivite. And then he went to Ishmael's family and married Mahalath Basmath, which was Ishmael's daughter. And then it talks about who his children were, specifically who his sons were: Eliphaz, Reuel, Jeus, Jalam, and Korah. And then it talks about Eliphaz's sons: Timon, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, Kenaz, Timnah, which was, and from the concubine, and by Timnah, the concubine, Amalek, which is an important name for us to mention because the Israelites, the Israelis of 2024 are justifying their genocide of the Palestinians over in the land, saying that those Palestinians are Amalekites and they were given permission to kill all of them. That's why that's their biblical excuse for the genocide that they're carrying out. So that's why that word Amalek is highlighted here. Then the sons of Reuel, Nahath, Zerah, Shema, Mizah, and Anah. Now, among the people that Esau, Edom, took wives from, and then once his family began to populate, they went to other areas. One of the areas that they went into was the mountains of Seir, which is just south and east of what we call the land of Yasharel, the land of Israel. Okay, they were mountain people. That's where the Hittites were, for instance. That's where the Horites were. Now, we're not going to get into that much detail here, but not everybody, not every humanoid on the planet was put here by the Most High. I'll just say it that way. If you remember from Genesis chapter 6, it talked about the sons of God looking at the daughters of men in lustful ways and taking them for wives. And they came up with offspring that were called giants, but actually they were mixed children, all right? They lived in caves in the mountains, and the mountains of Seir, some of them were called Horites. All right. So when it talks about the people of Seir and Edom, it's talking about those people or descendants of those people. And like I said, that's a whole study in and of itself. I already understand it can be controversial because some people don't believe that angels can mix with humans, but the scriptures do not rule that out if you really study the scriptures. But in any case, so what you have is a group of people that the Most High never intended to be in great numbers on this planet. Never. Okay? So when we hear about the story of the flood, part of the reason why the flood happened was because those hybrids had taken over the planet. They were eating people. They were mating not only with people, but with animals. See, all of these mythology characters, I can't remember the name of it now. The character where you have a half man, half horse, or you have a reptilian head and a human body. We think that those are just things made up by humans, okay? But they may not be made up. And in any case, in that area, to this day, you can find bones, or people have found bones of giants, okay? And they have also found these hybrids that we're talking about, and it's a mess, okay? So those were the people that the Edomites started mixing with. So I'm not going to read all of those names, but that's what Esau, Edom, and his children were doing. It wasn't all of them, but they were certainly doing that. All right. Now, from Esau, Edom, in Genesis chapter 36, verses 43 through 54, kingdoms were established. Kingdoms are smaller pockets within an ethnic group, within a nation, okay? And the kings are the leaders of the families, okay? So it talks about who those leaders of the families of Esau were. And in the King James Version, sometimes they're called dukes. So if you see the word duke, a duke is in the culture that of what we call the Middle East. A duke and a king were similar. Okay, it's not like England. Dukes were more expansive than that. So in other words, in any case, verse 43 says, "These are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the Israelites." And then it tells who those people are. Bela, son of Beor. His city was Dinhabah. When he died, Joab, son of Zerah from Basra, reigned in his place. And we just keep going on. Hushman, Hadad, Semiah, Shaul, um, Baal Hanan, Hadad. So these were all kings, and some were chiefs. And so there were chiefs of Edom. I'm down now to verses 51 through 54. Timnah, Alva, Jeheth, Oholibama, Ella, Pinon, Kenaz. That's the name that you'll hear. Timon, Mibzar, Magdiel, Iram. Those were all the chiefs or the dukes of Edom. Here is a graphical depiction of some of the people groups and the activities that we've been talking about. So if you look on the right here, in this area right up in here, this is the kingdom of Edom, or this is where Edom went. And on other maps, when I say Edom, I'm really talking about Esau, okay? And on other maps, it actually says that they took the place of the kingdom of the Horites. So this area was also the kingdom of the Horites, this area right in here. Now, Isaac and Rebekah came from, Rebekah came from up here, which is where Isaac's people were. And they eventually ended up in this area. This is where Abraham was actually buried. And as you can see here, it's called the Kingdom of Judah because this is after the two kingdoms, the 12 tribes of Israel had split up. But so the Kingdom of Israel is in blue, the Kingdom of Judah is in sort of pink. But Edom is right here, okay? So that is one depiction. Another one would be over here on this map. And this is during the time where and when Jesus was walking, Yeshua was walking. So as you can see, the area where the 10 tribes are, they're no longer there. The 10 tribes went all the way up into this area, though. Let me highlight that again. Went all the way up into this area here. This is the Sea of Galilee right here. So, and then this says Samaria. So roughly this is where the 10 tribes were. And then below that is where the kingdom of Judah, or the Yahudi, were. And as you can see, this is Jerusalem. And the area is called Judea. But if you look right below Judea, this other area is called Idumea. That's where the children of Esau, the offspring of Esau, were living. And if going back over here, you can see how much territory they took up. And although Idumea is here, they used to be down in this area as well. Down in this area, okay? So they used to have all of that. All of that was what we would call Edom, all right, which has now become Idumea. So that's just a graphical depiction of the areas that we're talking about. By the way, this little strip right in here, that's where all the drama is going on today. That's Gaza. Okay. The other place where there are some, what they call Palestinians, is like right in here, called the West Bank. Okay. So that's what all of the furor is about. But then the question is, who are these people that are prosecuting this war and, as some have said, this genocide? So just to show you on a map where those places are. Now, while all of that is going on, there's this other brother called Jacob, whose name was changed to what we call Israel in English, but in Hebrew it's Yashreel. So Yashreel's blessing from Isaac is recorded here. He says, "May Yah give you the dew of heaven, the riches of the earth, and abundance of grain and new wine. May peoples serve you and nations bow down to you. May you be the master of your brothers. May the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." That's why it's so important for us to know who Jacob Yashreel is, because that blessing belongs to Yashreel. Here are some facts to consider when it comes to who is a Jew or who is Jewish. That does not necessarily mean that those are Israelites. There's a couple of bullet points here. An anthropological fact: many Christians have more Hebrew Israelite blood in their veins than their Jewish neighbors. And that came from What Price Israel by Alfred Lilienthal. Second bullet point: DSNA and tradition. Being Jewish is not defined genetically. Jews are a people, a nation, and primarily a belief community. Dr. Karl Skorecki. Third bullet point: John Fisher, The Olive Tree Connection, page 97. Jewishness, however, consists of many elements: sociological, cultural, ethnic, religious. The strength and mixture of these elements varies from person to person. And then the final bullet point: none of these characteristics make this people group the people of the book. You've heard that statement being made. The point of this slide is to say there have been many people talking about who is a Jew and who is not. This is not a new conversation. But we're at a point in time and a point in history where it is important to let the Bible speak and be the final authority to answer that question. So now in modern times, we hear a lot about the word Jew. There's a difference between bloodline descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and those whose ancestors became Jews. And so when we go further into this study, this is sort of a precursor to what we're going to be talking about. The name Jew comes from the Tanakh, and it's actually just I'm sure you've heard this before. The J sound was not a written sound, and it was not a pronounced sound in Hebrew. Okay, and actually it's a relatively new consonant, J, that sound. Okay. In the Tanakh, the word is Yehuda or Yehudi. And in the Old Testament, that word Yehuda or Yehudi is found 813 times. Okay. And it describes one of the sons of Jacob. Don't forget, in your previous studies, Jacob had 12 sons, not just one. So Yehuda is one of the tribes of Jacob. And those who come from Yehuda are the Yehudi. That's the family line that emanated from Yehuda. Now, why is that important? It's because our Savior came through that line. That's why Yehuda is in the line of the seed of the woman. Okay? So that's what that name is referring to. Now, later the name was used to describe anyone living in the territory assigned to the children of Yahudi or Yahuda. So that territory then, as time went on, was overrun, retaken, repopulated, as is the case with most geographical areas. Okay, so see, and that's one of the things that even the children of Yasharel are going to have to come to grips with. People move. They move all over the place, all right? So when they move, other people move into where they were, unless the place has become uninhabitable. Because usually when people move, it's because the resources to sustain them are not sufficient, so they go somewhere else. That has always been the case. So once we get to, I would say, after or around the time of the Babylonian dispersion, when Jerusalem was overrun by Nebuchadnezzar and the children of Judah were sent into captivity for 70 years, there were still people living there. And then when they came back after 70 years, some of them were living there. Okay. So that territory itself became a region that is called Judea. Okay. Or Yehudi, meaning an inhabitant of the territory of Judah. So anyone living in that area would be considered a Jew. Anyone living in that contiguous geographical area would be considered a Jew. So from that point on and later, it also included those who embraced Judaism as a religion. This all happened after some of the former inhabitants of Judea returned from Babylon and the Babylonian captivity. And that information is found in Antiquities, the book by Josephus. It says book 9, verse 7. It probably means chapter 7. Okay, so then by the time that Yeshua is born, by the time of the Messiah, the word Jew included proselytes. It included Idumeans, which were the progeny of the Edomites, in other words, Esau's offspring. It included other people besides the direct bloodline of Judah or Yehuda. But the promise and the prophecy regarding the Most High's chosen was always related to the bloodline seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then continuing on into Judah as the bloodline, because Judah was the tribe or the family that the Messiah, Jesus, Yeshua, would come through. So that never changed, although the understanding of the word Jew was expansive. It originally had to do with the tribe of Judah. Okay. The Bible, especially in the Tanakh, never refers to the other 10 tribes as Jews. And if you think about it, that makes sense. Now, during the New Testament, when it talks about Jesus and his relationship to the Jews, or Jesus saying salvation is of the Jews, that word Jews is used for the people who are in that area. Okay, so it's not like the Bible never talks about Jews in a larger sense, but when it comes to the promise is always through the bloodline that Yeshua came through. Okay, but to sort of wrap up the thought, in the land of Judea, during the time that Jesus was walking the earth, there were many races and people groups that included Canaanites, it included Edomites, again, the Edomites being the descendants of Esau. It included other ethnicities. We already mentioned Idumeans, which were again part of the Edomite group. All lived under the moniker of Jew, but not all were descendants of Judah. So we're going to conclude the first part of the study, and we'll pick up with this slide where it talks about Jews at the time of Yeshua. Father, bless you and keep you. Father, make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. Father, lift up his countenance